Hey everyone, welcome back. My channel today, we're breaking down the 5 Kennedy half dollars that collectors are paying serious money for. These rare coins prove that even modern half dollars can be worth a fortune. Let's jump right into the countdown. Our first coin, the 2023 Kennedy half dollar with the large date variety and a P mint mark in what most people would call fine condition, meaning it shows visible wear and scratches from everyday use. Yet it has achieved a remarkable value at auction, bringing in $72,000. That's not a typo. $72,000 for a coin from 2023 that you might have thought was common or worth just face value. Today's story will explain why this coin is so rare, what makes it so desirable, and how collectors in today's auction market are willing to pay extraordinary prices for coins that many people overlook. When most people think of valuable coins, their minds typically go to old and historic pieces, coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, or rare errors from mid-century. But every now and then, a modern coin surprises everyone. The 2023 Kennedy half dollar is a perfect example. At first glance, the regular circulation strikes of this coin are very much like any other Kennedy half dollar, familiar, classic, and easily recognized. But within the 2023 production, there exists a very specific variation that numismatists call the large date. This refers to the size and spacing of the date digits on the coin. On most 2023 Kennedy half dollars, the date appears in a standard size that collectors and the general public are accustomed to seeing. However, a small number of coins were struck with a noticeably larger date, slightly wider numerals with a different alignment, and this subtle difference is what distinguishes the large date variety. What makes this story even more fascinating is that this rare variety was found in a coin that was clearly in circulated condition. It wasn't a pristine, uncirculated collector's piece stored in a safe or protective holder. It wasn't graded at a super high level by a professional grading service. Instead, it was a coin that showed the kind of wear and scratches you'd expect from everyday use, rubbing, light abrasions, and softened details from having passed through countless hands or been carried in pockets or coin rolls. Professional coin graders might describe it as fine condition, meaning the major features are visible, but evident wear is present. To most people, that would seem like the least likely candidate for a high-value collector's coin. But this 2023 Kennedy half dollar was different. Before we talk about the auction result and the $72,000 price, let's understand why this variety is so valuable in the first place. In the coin collecting world, die varieties are a major area of interest. A die is the tool used by the mint to strike the design into the metal blank. Small changes in dies, due to wear, replacement, or intentional modification, can lead to slight differences on the coins they produce. These differences can show up in the date, in lettering, or in other fine elements of the coin's design. Most of the time, these varieties are very subtle and only noticed by serious collectors or specialists. But sometimes a variety becomes significant enough, either because so few examples are known, or because it represents an unusual production anomaly, that collectors around the world take notice. The 2023 large date, with P mint mark, is exactly that kind of variety. It was not widely reported when the coins first came out of the mint, and most casual collectors never realized it existed. The typical 2023 Kennedy half dollar has a regular size date and the customary mint mark indicating where it was struck. In this case, the Philadelphia Mint, which uses a P mint mark. But on this rare die variety, the date digits are noticeably larger and the spacing and alignment differ from the standard variety. This kind of variation may seem small to an untrained eye, but to die variety collectors, it is a distinct and verifiable category. Now imagine this coin living its life in everyday circulation. It gets used to make change. It's carried in pockets, set into bowls or drawers, maybe passed on from person to person without anyone ever realizing it was something special. Most of the time, rare coin discoveries happen when someone pays attention, when a collector looks closely at the details instead of just tossing the coin aside. That's exactly what happened here. A collector or dealer, someone experienced and knowledgeable, noticed the subtle difference in the date size while examining circulated coins. They recognized that this wasn't just another 2023 Kennedy half-dollar, but something rare and potentially valuable. They knew enough to authenticate it, have it professionally examined, and eventually bring it to auction. Once it was confirmed as a legitimate large date variety, with the P mint mark, the coin began its journey into numismatic fame. And what happened next was nothing short of remarkable. At auction, where serious collectors and investors had the opportunity to bid, competition was intense. People who specialize in modern die varieties and error coins understand that when a new and rare variety emerges, especially one that is confirmed and authenticated, demand can shoot up quickly. These collectors want to be the first, or among the few, to own a piece of numismatic history. As the bidding advanced, the price climbed steadily, far beyond what most people would expect for a circulated 2023 half-dollar. And in the end, the final sale price was $72,000, a staggering figure that tells you just how valuable rarity and collector demand can be. Now, let's talk about why people were willing to pay so much for a coin in fine, circulated condition. Normally, the condition of a coin plays a huge role in its value. Coins that are uncirculated, with strong luster and no wear, typically fetch higher prices than those that show signs of use. But in cases where the variety is extremely rare and highly sought after, collectors will pay top dollar regardless of condition. What matters most is the existence of the variety itself. If few examples are known to exist, and the community of collectors recognizes its importance, then even a worn example becomes a prize. In addition, this coin isn't just rare. It's part of the very first group of modern Kennedy half-dollars where die varieties were recognized and documented in real time. That adds historical interest. It tells a story about the minting process in the 21st century, about how even modern coins can produce surprises, and about the evolving world of numismatics, where collectors still discover new things every year. The narrative around this coin, that a 2023 issue could be worth so much, captured the imagination of the numismatic community and helped fuel the intense bidding at auction. For many collectors, discoveries like this are a reminder that treasure can be hiding in plain sight. You don't always have to search through dusty old collections or centuries-old coins to find something valuable. Sometimes it's right in the coins you handle every day. Learning to recognize die varieties, understanding what to look for in date size, mint mark placement, and other subtle details can turn ordinary pocket change into a remarkable find. Next coin, the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar, specifically the large date variety with no mint mark, in heavily circulated, scratched, poor condition, yet it has reached an astonishing value in today's auction market, a value that has shocked collectors everywhere. $140,000. Yes, you heard that right. $140,000 for a half-dollar coin most people would dismiss at first glance. Today we'll uncover why this coin is so valuable, what makes it special, and what this means for collectors and anyone curious about rare coins. At first glance, a 1979 Kennedy half-dollar may not seem remarkable. In fact, millions were minted that year, and for decades these coins were common in circulation. People used them to buy groceries, pay for parking, or keep as pocket change. Most 1979 half-dollars today are still worth just $1 or $2, especially in worn condition. But within that massive mintage, there exists a tiny group of coins with specific die characteristics. That is, the large date with no mint mark. Unlike many other coins, This isn't about being pristine or shiny. It's about rarity, variation, and the history of how coins were made. So what exactly is the large date variety? To understand this, let's take a moment to talk about how coins are struck. When coins are produced, the date, those numbers on the face of the coin, is impressed into the metal by a tool called a die. Sometimes different dies are used, and slight variations occur. These variations can change the size, shape, or spacing of the date numerals. Most collectors don't even notice these subtle differences, but serious numismatists, that is, expert coin collectors, pay close attention because certain varieties are much rarer than others. In the case of the 1979 Kennedy half-dollar, most coins feature a standard date, and many have a mint mark indicating where they were struck. But a very small number show what's called a large date, where the numerals are boldly larger and spaced differently, and on top of that, some have no mint mark at all. No mint mark means the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during a time when Philadelphia did not use a mint mark on its coins. But not all 1979 Philadelphia coins have the large date, and that's what makes the variety extraordinary. Now imagine this coin buried in everyday use. For decades it might have passed through cashiers, changed hands, rubbed against keys, felt the friction of wallets and pockets. Its surfaces would wear, scratches would form. Most people wouldn't think twice about it. It would be just another half-dollar. But for a collector who knows what to look for, those worn features could hide something incredibly rare. And that's exactly what happened with one particular coin. This specific 1979 large date, no mint mark Kennedy half-dollar, in heavily circulated and scratched condition, surfaced at auction recently and made history, selling for an eye-watering $140,000. This isn't just a high price. It's near the top of what coins like this have ever achieved. To put that into perspective, most Kennedy half-dollars from 1979, even in excellent condition, are only worth a few dollars. But because of this coin's rare die variety and the fact that so few of them are known to exist, collectors were willing to bid tens of thousands of dollars to own it. So why does this happen? Why would people pay so much for a coin with a scratched, worn surface that some might toss aside if they found it in change? The answer lies in three key forces that drive coin values: rarity, demand, and story. First, rarity. When a coin is produced in extremely low numbers, or when only a handful of examples are known to exist today, collectors become fiercely competitive. It doesn't matter if the coin is shiny and new or scratched and worn. If it's one of the few known survivors of a rare variety, it becomes incredibly valuable. The 1979 large date, no mint mark variety falls into this category. Only a tiny number are known to exist, and even fewer have been positively identified and documented. Second, demand. The world of coin collecting is global. Serious collectors build specialized sets, and some sets require specific date and variety combinations. A collector trying to complete a set of Kennedy half-dollars with every known variety would absolutely want this coin. And when several passionate collectors compete for the same piece, prices can skyrocket fast. Third, story. There is something magical about owning a coin that has history, mystery, or an unexpected twist. A coin that was once ordinary pocket change, but later revealed to be incredibly rare, has a narrative that captures attention. Auction catalogs show these stories with pride, and collectors love to share them. Every time this coin changes hands, its legend grows a little more. Let's talk more about the condition. This coin was described as heavily circulated and scratched. That means it was not a gem. It showed wear on the high points, abrasions on the fields, and general signs of long use. In most cases, that kind of condition would reduce a coin's value. But again, rarity trumps condition when the supply is so limited. In fact, in some cases, a worn example of an extremely rare variety can be more valuable than a pristine example of a more common type. Professional coin graders, the experts who evaluate and certify coins, look for specific die characteristics. They compare the size of the numerals, the spacing, and even tiny details in the design. When this particular coin was examined, it matched the large date profile, and there was no mint mark present where one might expect on other varieties. These details confirmed that it was indeed one of the rarest 1979 Kennedy half-dollars known to exist. Once authenticated, the coin was listed in a major auction. Serious bidders from around the world placed bids, driving the price higher and higher. It didn't take long for the final sale price to reach $140,000. Some of the bidders were private collectors. Others were dealers who understood the rarity and future potential of the coin. Either way, as the hammer fell and the sale was recorded, this 1979 half-dollar cemented its place in numismatic history. So what does this mean for you? If you collect coins, this story is a reminder to always look closely, learn the varieties, and never dismiss a coin because of its condition. And if you're someone who has coins stored away in jars or boxes, it might be worth taking another look. You never know what might be hiding beneath the scratches. Even if you never find a $140,000 coin, there is joy in the hunt. There is satisfaction in learning, in understanding the stories behind the metal, the mints, and the people who made and used these coins over time. Coins are more than just currency. They are pieces of history that connect us to the moments and places they pass through. Next coin, the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, large date variety, with a D mint mark, found in circulated condition with scratches, wear, and imperfections, but still commanding an extraordinary price. This coin's journey from everyday currency to one of the most valuable modern Kennedy half-dollars ever sold is a story full of surprises, history, and lessons for every collector and curious viewer alike. Most people think of valuable coins as being old, from the 1800s or early 1900s, or rare errors like double dies and off-center strikes. But sometimes, even coins from the 1970s can hold hidden treasures. The 1973 Kennedy half-dollar is a perfect example of that. To the average person, a 1973 half-dollar is just a 50-cent piece, something you might find in a jar of change and toss into a coin tray without a second thought. In circulated condition, most 1973 halves are worth well under $10. But one specific variety of this date, the large date with a Denver mint mark, D, is exceptionally rare and highly desirable to collectors who focus on die varieties and U.S. mint history. Let's take a moment to understand how this happens. When coins are produced at the U.S. Mint, they are struck by steel dies that imprint the design, lettering, and date into blanks of metal. Over time, dies wear out and are replaced. Sometimes new dies may be slightly different. The date might be slightly larger, the numerals spaced differently, or fine details subtly altered. Most of these differences go unnoticed by the casual observer, but to expert numismatists, they are significant. These small variations are known as die varieties, and many of them are cataloged and studied by collectors who specialize in this area. In the case of the 1973 Kennedy half-dollar, most coins were struck with what we now call the standard date, but a very small number were produced with a large date, where the numerals of the year are noticeably bigger and spaced differently than usual. What makes the 1973 large date, with the D mint mark, especially rare, is that only a handful of these coins are known to exist. The Denver Mint did not routinely produce the large date variety for general circulation, at least not in numbers that have survived to today, which makes the appearance of this variety extremely uncommon. Now imagine this coin in everyday use. It was struck and released into circulation, passing through hands, wallets, cash registers, and coin trays over decades. As people used it, The high points of the design became worn and smoothed, and scratches and nicks appeared on its surface. By the time it was discovered, the coin showed the kind of wear that most collectors would dismiss as bad condition: scratched fields, softened devices, loss of sharp detail. In coin collecting terms, this is circulated condition, and there are judges and grading standards that would likely place it in a category far below the coveted uncirculated grades you'll hear about on show floors or auction catalogs. But here's the twist. For extremely rare die varieties, condition is not the dominant factor in determining value. Rarity and collector demand can far outweigh surface quality. In this case, the 1973 large date with D mint mark is so scarce that even a worn, heavily circulated specimen is in high demand among specialists. And when this particular coin was authenticated by experts and submitted to a major auction, collectors from around the world recognized its significance, and the bidding heated up fast. When the auctioneer brought the coin to the block, there was a palpable excitement among numismatists. This wasn't just any 1973 half-dollar. It was one of the rarest modern varieties known, and this was one of the few opportunities anyone might have to own it. Serious collectors and dealers alike bid competitively, each willing to pay a premium for the chance to secure this elusive piece. And when the hammer finally came down, the final sale price was an astonishing $150,000, a sum that would surprise even many seasoned coin collectors. To put that into perspective, think about what a regular 1973 Kennedy half-dollar in circulated condition sells for, often just a few dollars at most. And yet this one brought six figures. That gap between everyday value and extraordinary rarity illustrates the power of rarity and demand in the numismatic market. It shows that coins are not just valued for their metal content or age, but for their story, scarcity, and collectible significance. So, why would collectors pay $150,000 for a coin in such worn condition? The answer comes down to three key factors: rarity, authentication, and demand. First, rarity. The 1973 large date with D mint mark is extremely scarce. If only a handful of examples exist, that means collectors who want to complete a specialized set, for example, a set of all known Kennedy half-dollar die varieties, will intensely compete for any available specimen. Second, authentication. Before being auctioned, this coin was examined by experts who confirmed that it truly is a large date die variety with a D mint mark. That kind of professional verification boosts bidder confidence and drives up prices. And third, demand. Among the community of advanced collectors who specialize in modern die varieties, rare coins like this are treasured pieces that can elevate a collection from common to legendary. The story of this coin also highlights something important about coin collecting. Every coin has potential. Most collectors will tell you that the thrill of the hunt, the possibility of finding something rare or valuable among ordinary coins, is one of the most exciting parts of the hobby. You never know when you might come across something unexpected: a coin pulled from circulation, a mismarked piece found in change, or a subtle die variety overlooked by most eyes. Any of these could be hiding somewhere, waiting to be discovered. For beginners and experienced collectors alike, this particular story offers a lesson in paying attention to detail. At first glance, a worn 1973 Kennedy half-dollar may not seem remarkable, but to someone familiar with die varieties and minting history, tiny differences in date size or letter placement tell a completely different story, one of scarcity and collectible value. Learning to recognize those subtleties is part of what makes coin collecting both challenging and rewarding. If you've ever wondered whether coins in your collection might be more valuable than you think, or whether a worn coin could someday turn out to be a hidden gem, the story of the 1973 large date Kennedy half-dollar with D mint mark should inspire you. It reminds us that rarity and historical interest can create extraordinary value, even when the surface condition is far from perfect. It shows that the world of coins is full of surprises, and that passion, knowledge, and careful observation can unlock hidden treasures that others might overlook. Next coin, the 1993 Kennedy half-dollar, large date variety with a P-mint mark, found in circulated, scratched, dusty condition, yet selling in today's auction market for an incredible $110,000. Yes, a coin that many people would overlook, a coin that shows where from real-life use managed to reach a price that most collectors only dream about. At first glance, a 1993 Kennedy half-dollar doesn't seem special. Millions were produced. Most examples are still worth close to face value in circulated condition. You might find one in a coin jar, an old drawer, or even mixed in with other half-dollars at a bank. The design is familiar. President John F. Kennedy on the obverse, the presidential seal on the reverse. It looks like any other half-dollar from the 1990s. But hidden within that year is a rare die variety that completely changes the story. The key detail is the large date variety combined with the P-mint mark. The P stands for the Philadelphia Mint, where the coin was struck. In 1993, standard half-dollars were produced with what collectors call the normal or regular date size. However, a small number of coins were struck using a different die where the numbers in the date appear noticeably larger and slightly different in spacing and alignment. To the untrained eye, the difference may seem small, but to experienced collectors, it is clear and significant. Die varieties happen during the minting process. When dies are created or replaced, small differences can occur. Sometimes a modified or replacement die has slightly larger numerals or different proportions. Most of the time, these changes are subtle and go unnoticed. But when only a limited number of coins are struck with that particular die, the result is rarity. And rarity is the foundation of high value in the coin world. Now here's what makes this particular story even more exciting. The example that sold for $110,000 was not a perfect, shiny, uncirculated coin locked away in a protective holder. It was a circulated coin. It showed scratches across the surface. It had dusty residue from storage. The high points of the design showed wear. The fields were not mirror-like. In grading terms, it would likely fall into a fine or lower circulated category. In most cases, that kind of condition would dramatically reduce a coin's value. But when a coin is extremely rare, condition becomes secondary to availability. Collectors who specialize in Kennedy half-dollars know how difficult it is to find the 1993 large date with P-mint mark. Very few confirmed examples exist. Many collectors have searched through rolls and collections for years without finding one. When one finally appears and is authenticated, it becomes a major event in the numismatic community. Authentication is critical. Before reaching auction, this coin was carefully examined by professionals who confirmed the large date characteristics. They compared the size and shape of the numerals to known standard examples. They verified the P-mint mark placement. They documented the die markers that prove it is genuine. Once certified as the rare variety, the coin's importance skyrocketed. When it entered the auction market, interest was immediate. Serious collectors, dealers, and investors all recognized the opportunity. For someone building a complete variety set of Kennedy half-dollars, this coin is essential. Without it, the collection remains incomplete. That kind of pressure creates competitive bidding. As the auction began, bids climbed steadily. What may have started at a relatively modest level quickly escalated as multiple bidders refused to back down. The rarity of the coin meant there might not be another chance for years. For advanced collectors, waiting is risky. Another example might not appear anytime soon, and if it does, it could sell for even more. That urgency fuels strong bids. When the hammer finally fell at $110,000, it sent a clear message to the coin collecting world. Modern coins can be just as valuable as classic rarities when the right combination of scarcity and demand exists. The final price was not about silver content or face value. It was about die variety rarity, collector competition, and historical significance within the Kennedy series. Some people might ask how a dusty, scratched coin from 1993 could ever be worth that much. The answer lies in supply and demand. If only a handful of confirmed examples exist, and dozens of serious collectors want one, the price will rise dramatically. Even in circulated condition, ownership becomes more important than perfection. In fact, for extreme rarities, collectors are often grateful to obtain any authenticated example regardless of where. Another important factor is the popularity of the Kennedy half-dollar series itself. Since its introduction in 1964, the series has remained one of the most collected in American numismatics. It connects history, emotion, and modern coinage. Because so many collectors focus on this series, rare varieties attract significant attention. A newly recognized or rarely offered die variety becomes headline material almost instantly. This story also carries an important lesson. Valuable coins are not always old. They are not always gold. They are not always in perfect condition. Sometimes they are sitting quietly in circulation, unnoticed for decades. The difference between a 50-cent coin and a six-figure treasure can come down to a small detail in the date size. For collectors watching this, it's a reminder to study your coins carefully. Compare date styles. Look closely at mint marks. Research known varieties. Knowledge is the most powerful tool in coin collecting. The person who discovered this 1993 large date variety did not find it by accident alone. They recognized what they were looking at. And for casual viewers, this story shows why coin collecting remains so exciting. The thrill of the hunt is real. The possibility of discovering something rare in ordinary change keeps the hobby alive and growing. Even if you never find a $110,000 coin, the search itself can be rewarding. In today's auction market, rare die varieties continue to perform strongly. Collector interest in modern rarities has grown, especially when documented examples are extremely limited. The 1993 large date Kennedy half-dollar with P-Mint mark has now secured its place among the most valuable modern half-dollars ever sold. Next coin, the 1980 Kennedy half-dollar large date variety with a P-Mint mark, found in circulated, scratched, dusty condition, yet selling in today's auction market for an astonishing $130,000. Yes, a coin that once passed through everyday hands, picked up scratches, collected dust, and showed clear signs of wear somehow became one of the most valuable Kennedy half-dollars ever recorded. At first glance, the 1980 Kennedy half-dollar seems ordinary. Millions were minted. Most examples in circulation are worth only face value or slightly more to collectors. The design is familiar and iconic, featuring President John F. Kennedy on the obverse and the presidential seal on the reverse. For decades, these coins have been stored in jars, drawers, and bankrolls, often ignored because they appear common. But as experienced collectors know, sometimes it's not the age of a coin that determines its value. It's the details. The key detail in this story is the large date variety, combined with the P-Mint mark. The P indicates that the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. While Philadelphia produces millions of coins each year, subtle die variations sometimes occur during production. In 1980, most Kennedy half-dollars were struck with what collectors call the normal date size. However, a small number were produced with noticeably larger numerals in the date. The difference may seem minor to the untrained eye, but when compared side by side with a standard example, the large date stands out clearly in size, spacing, and overall appearance. Die varieties happen when a new die is created or modified during the minting process. Even slight changes in engraving can result in different numeral sizes or placements. Usually these variations go unnoticed and are produced in limited numbers before being corrected or replaced. That limited production is exactly what creates rarity, and rarity is what drives serious collectors to compete fiercely when one of these coins appears. Now, here's what makes this particular example even more remarkable. The coin that reached $130,000 was not in pristine condition. It was circulated. It showed scratches from contact with other coins. The surfaces were dusty from years of storage. The high points of the design showed visible wear. In typical grading terms, it would fall into a fine or possibly lower circulated category. For most coins, that kind of condition significantly reduces value. But when only a handful of confirmed examples exist, collectors focus more on availability than perfection. Authentication played a crucial role in this coin's journey. When the large date characteristics were noticed, the coin was submitted for professional examination. Experts compared the numerals to verified examples of the standard 1980 date. They analyzed die markers, spacing, and alignment. Once confirmed as a genuine large date with P-mint mark, the coin became highly desirable. Documentation and certification gave bidders confidence that this was not simply a common coin with wear, but a rare and verified variety. When it entered a major auction, excitement spread quickly through the numismatic community. Modern variety collectors, Kennedy half-dollar specialists, and investors all recognized the opportunity. For collectors building a complete set of Kennedy die varieties, this coin represents a critical piece. Without it, a variety collection remains incomplete. And when a key variety appears on the market, especially one as rare as this, competitive bidding is almost guaranteed. As the auction opened, bidding moved steadily upward. What may have started at a modest level quickly escalated as serious collectors refused to step aside. The rarity of the 1980 large date, with P-mint mark, meant there was no certainty another example would surface soon. Some collectors may have been waiting years for a chance to acquire one. That urgency creates powerful momentum. The final hammer price reached an incredible $130,000 for a circulated, scratched, dusty half-dollar from 1980. This result stunned many outside the hobby. But within the collecting community, it reinforced a simple truth. Rarity and demand outweigh condition when supply is extremely limited. It's important to understand that the Kennedy half-dollar series has long been one of the most popular in American coin collecting. Introduced in 1964, the series carries historical and emotional significance. Because of its popularity, even small die varieties attract attention. Over time, specialists have studied and documented subtle differences across many years of production. When a rare variety like the 1980 large date is confirmed, it quickly becomes a headline item. Another factor influencing the price is the growing interest in modern rarities. In recent years, collectors have expanded their focus beyond classic coins to include modern die varieties. As knowledge spreads and research deepens, previously overlooked variations gain recognition. This increased awareness creates new demand. When supply remains extremely small, prices respond dramatically. The condition of this particular coin adds an interesting layer to the story. Its scratches and dusty surfaces tell a history of circulation and real-world use. It likely passed through countless transactions before anyone realized its importance. In some ways, that wear enhances the narrative. It proves the coin was not preserved from the moment of minting, but lived a normal life before becoming a rarity. For some collectors, that authenticity carries its own charm. There is also an important lesson here for anyone who handles coins. Valuable discoveries often come from careful observation. The difference between a standard date and a large date may seem small, but to a trained eye, it is unmistakable. Education and research are powerful tools in numismatics. The person who identified this coin understood what to look for and took the time to verify it. Stories like this keep the hobby exciting. They remind us that hidden treasures are still out there. Not every valuable coin is ancient or made of gold. Sometimes it's a modern $50 sitting unnoticed for decades. The thrill of discovery drives collectors to keep searching, comparing, and learning. In today's auction market, rare and documented die varieties continue to attract strong prices. As more collectors compete for limited examples, values can rise quickly. The 1980 Kennedy $50 large date with P-Mint mark has now secured its place among the most expensive modern $50 ever sold.